Hello and welcome to On a Mission, the show where we share inspiring conversations with phenomenal women who are creating success and prosperity in their lives with purpose and passion. I'm Pauline Rohdich, a success mindset coach and clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm on a personal mission to remind you that you are a beautiful soul and you have so much potential. And my intention for this show is to give you the nudge to answer your own calling and to rise up and take on your life's mission. Hello everybody. Yes, I think we're live, or at least we're now recording. So welcome to this episode of On a Mission. And today I'm joined by the wonderful Áine Mulvey, who is the founder of justus.ie. And Áine and I had the pleasure of connecting through a mutual friend there recently. So I'm very inspired by what she has created and is creating, and she's wonderful aspirations for the future. So it's great to have you on the show today, Áine. How are you doing?
Good, Pauline. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, delighted.
Absolute pleasure. It's a real pleasure. So justus.ie, tell us all about it. When it started, what was the thinking behind it? What inspired you to start this particular movement?
Yeah, so we originally started it in 2018. So it's a good while now that it's operating. And when I say started and operated, like at the very start, it was me walking by myself for ages. And then it was my sister who joined, and then a couple of friends that joined, and it just grew and built from then to now. Fast forward 2 years, coming up to 3 actually, and we've over 1,000 members.
So just give the background. I mean, you mentioned the word walking, so it's a social club. It started as a social club.
Yeah, it's a social network. Yeah.
And it was inspired because
I was very lonely going back to that time.
Yes.
I was surrounded by people. I come from a big family, but I was still very lonely. And I thought it was depression. That's what I thought. I was sad.
Yeah.
That's because at the time what I understood depression to be, that you just felt sad.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought I wasn't sad, and I've nothing to be sad about. So it just took me a while to figure out myself that it was loneliness. That's what it was. I felt lonely.
And can I obviously I know you're in a full-time job, so you were busy at work. You have 3 daughters. I mean, which I have to please share the ages of your daughters, because the only reason I would do that is because you don't look old enough to be their mom.
But thank you.
So share that.
My eldest daughter is 20.
Mm-hmm.
I have a middle girl then, Leah, who's 16, and my youngest is Hannah, who's 11. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, I mean, you were busy, but that loneliness, I understand what you're talking about, actually. So you're being nudged to do something. And so how did it start? Did you reach out to people on social media, or did you just contact people by text? How did you get going?
So I realized that if I couldn't find any support out there by the usual way we connect with people, then it wasn't available. So I decided that I was going to do something that was going to make it available for me. And the idea really came from, I did a lot of networking for business. Mm-hmm. And it's business at the end of the day. When we are in work, or whatever way you want to put it, but we have a persona in work, I think, a lot of us. And then when you're networking in business, it was so easy to sell. If you had a value, or if you had a service for somebody, then people would be in contact with you, and then you form kind of business relationships with people. Yeah. So that's what made me think there should be something out there that you can form friendships with people in the exact same way. Yeah. So
and forget business, like just leave the business to the side.
Forget business, because most of our business
want a break. Actually, people want a break.
Yes,
I completely agree with you. It's so great to switch off.
So great, but also, where does most of our business and our referrals come to? It's true relatives, true friends, true connections.
Yeah.
So that's where the kind of idea formed, and I said, look, well, what I'll need to do is, and I set up obviously a Facebook page, and Instagram, and I had a one-page brochure website to just highlight what we did, that and the mission of Just Us. That was all it was. It was just to highlight that.
And have you got do you have a mission statement?
Yeah, we've a mission statement that's still on, even though we've upgraded the website and it's done twice.
Share your mission statement.
So, oh God, it's very long. It's very long, but it's basically a social network for women.
Yeah.
A safe space that you can make friends, make connections. And it doesn't have to be that you make best friends or, connections that you're going to, it can be a couple of times during the year where you meet up. We don't take roll calls at the walks. It's a flexible in and out situation if you feel comfortable with coming every week, brilliant. Love to see you.
Yeah. So can you tell me this? It started out as walking.
Yes.
And where were you actually walking? What locations did you choose to walk?
Well, I live on the north side of Dublin.
Yeah. So the north side of Dublin. So yeah.
Yeah. So it was literally on the footpaths. It was walking around, taking an hour out in the evenings, and then we decided, if we're going to set it up as maybe like a destination, we needed to focus on points that people would know. So the very first walks we did was in Clontarf, and we used to meet opposite the Garda station there. We still do at Clontarf, and we used to walk to Bullwall and back, and that was 5 kilometers. And that's what we did.
And how many people, like on average, would show up?
Oh, maybe like 10, 12 people.
Yes.
And then we grew that. They were kind of, I call them the founding members. They're still with us now.
Yeah.
And we would walk down to Bullwall and we'd walk back, and we knew that was the kind of distance. And from that, we gauged how well people would be able to walk, how fast people walked, how slow, what paces. And then we ventured up to the Phoenix Park because it gave us more space and more routes and longer kilometers. Yes. So yeah, we moved over to the south side then, and we went over to Bushy Park. We went to Hellfire Club. So we were really kind of judging. It was all trial and error. It was learning how much people can, how much energy they had.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
different levels of fitness.
Different levels of fitness.
But people then getting to know one another, having the chats and the whole thing. Yeah. So it's grown to how many members now?
Well, so we've over 1,000 members, and like I said, but the restrictions have really has taken away the business, Pauline. Do you know what I mean? Like for a huge amount of time, and so we're really only back walking 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and hopefully that will continue.
Yes.
But so the walking club, if you like, has grown into something else. So I mean, there's no membership fee or anything for this. It's just a question of being part of. People subscribe, I guess, and so they hear, what's happening and when it's happening. Do you email people regularly?
Yes.
Or you're very active on social media, so people are aware of what's coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how have you turned this into a business?
So because of the restrictions with the COVID, we knew that we couldn't walk, we couldn't meet up, so I still wanted to keep it going. So then I started developing the products that we sell through Just Us.
Yeah. So
we have a range of, I suppose it would be categorized as gifts, but I like to call them gifts for yourself.
Like self-care products.
Absolutely. But to me, it's the tools that I used to make myself well. And so I always say about the products, they are, they're brilliant, but they are tools to be used with the support of the network. So although we sell the products, absolutely anyone can buy them and they're great gifts for people. Yeah. But ideally what you want is to be using the products, but to be registered with Just Us so that you have that support and that friendships and network behind you, because one thing has to be used with the other.
I know, I love it. But I mean, what type of products are you talking about?
Okay, so we have the little jar of positivity, which is probably our biggest seller. So it's 31 quotes, inspirational quotes. If you take one out of your jar every morning and read it, sets you up for the day, just a little boost to get you going.
Yeah. And
so that's the positivity jar. We also have a mammy jar that we created for Mother's Day. And it's old, those old-fashioned quotes that our moms used to say to us, our grandmothers used to say to us. And the idea from that came when we did the jar. I used my daughters, actually, we were doing them out, and we had such a good conversation with my own daughters about these sayings, because they were laughing, they were joking, they didn't even hear some of them. And for me, it was about that little jar created such a good laugh in our house that evening.
Fantastic. And give us an example of some of the things that would be in the mammy jar.
So in the mammy jar, it would be like a little birdie told me, you know, or it would be, God, I can't think off the top of my head now, but it's like, geez, I can't think.
A little birdie told me. Well, I would have heard that growing up for sure.
Yeah, like I'm trying to
secret. But no, listen, I love it. And when you say you created it, did you write out all these things? You're getting them printed somewhere, and
yeah. So we picked from about 70 quotes, that would be kind of, and they're real Irish family saying.
Yes.
So we picked from about 70 of them, and then we narrowed it down to like the 31. So we kind of do everything on a monthly basis.
Brilliant.
And we pick the best of them or the funniest ones of them. And then, yes, I have a girl who does most of my branding, and she does all that for me, Maria, and she's brilliant. And then she takes them, and then she basically, between the two of us, we turn them into a product, and the branding is great. And that's how it's done. She organizes all that for me.
And so you have, you are outsourcing like the packaging and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do. We outsource all that, but a lot of it we try and do it ourselves, because because we were working from home and because we had limited resource with COVID, we were, they're all homemade, like they're all done by us at home. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I really admire you for, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's needed,
Yeah.
And the Just Us is fantastic, for ourselves, but at the same time, it's sort of suggesting, isn't it, that whole solidarity thing, that we're looking after each other, and we've got each other's back.
Yeah.
And this is a place you can come to make friends. I think it's so fantastic, because loneliness is a thing. Even, people can be so lonely in a crowd. It's a real thing for people,
Yeah.
I remember hearing a couple of years ago, like, that London was the lonely capital of the world. And I mean, I know that I would have been very lonely at times living in London, because I lived there in the early, when was that? In the early 90s. And I worked for British Airways at the time. So, I mean, you're away flying. But my colleagues that became my friends could have lived in Cape Town, because we worked for an airline. So they weren't kind of next door. They weren't up the road. It wasn't that you had that continuity. And it was lonely at times.
Yeah.
So and that was probably the first time that I really experienced loneliness. So when I heard that statistic there fairly recently, I said, well, yeah, absolutely. And I must admit, when I was going to London, my mother was heartbroken, because she saw London too as a very lonely place, because her brothers had gone over there when they were only teenage boys, 16, 17. And obviously she would have witnessed her mother crying, missing them. But equally, they didn't come home very often back then. But they too were lonely, I mean, so look at, I think it's fantastic, because you're doing a great service for people. And I love the idea of just completely a network that is getting away from the business, that it is strictly social, So what else? You have a book club as well going, which I love reading. I mean, my biggest problem is that I could have 4 books on the go at one time. So tell us about your book club.
Yeah, so the book club, what we wanted to do was, we wanted to create a book club, again, in a social setting. But, it has to have a common interest as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, to get into the events, we had to find a common interest for people, but it was like a bit structured. But then after, it would be more relaxed, but everybody was there for the same goal, and the type of like-minded people would be there. So that was what we wanted to create. So we created the book club. And what I said was, I wanted to have it in venues across the city centre in Dublin, that it would also count as a night out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the whole thing of the old style of book club where, if you had a month to read a book, and then it was kind of like questions and answers on the book. Because then you'd be terrified. Like, if you hadn't got confidence, and then someone asked you a question about the book, And like that, when you just ask, you know, I'm not a great, like, off the top of my head thinker. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
But you know, and that's what I mean. If somebody comes to a book club and then they're asked, I didn't want them to feel that. I wanted it to be a really relaxed kind of, we're all there to read the book. We'll talk about it, but it would happen on our own terms. And of course, a glass of wine will help that.
Yeah.
And but also, if you don't drink, that's fine. We had tea and coffee there, so that's in my head. And of course, when we did the book clubs, we did them on a weeknight because, you know, we didn't want to focus either too heavily on the social night out thing because it
Yeah.
could turn into that.
Absolutely.
So that's what we did. We have it on a weeknight, and it will be the first Wednesday of every month. And we had the book, and they were great, you know. And but what was happening was there was a few people who would miss the last bus home because they were having a few drinks because they were enjoying themselves. But
Yes.
then you'd also have people who would turn up for an hour, make a few connections, and then that was grand. They were going home. So it worked really, really well.
Yeah. How would you cope though if all your 1,000 members landed in the same venue? How do you manage it? Like, I mean, with the book club?
Well, you subscribe to the walking club and you subscribe to the book club separately, but also the book club wouldn't have as many subscriptions as the walking. The walking seems to be the main driver.
Yeah.
But the book club does have, you know, the subscriptions are there. So again, you're talking maybe about 20, 25 people who will be there. But that's not to say, again, with the restrictions, we were hampered. Sure, at the time when it was getting going, all the venues closed and they're still not back opened. So we tried to do it online and it hasn't been as successful online. But a lot of people are afraid of Zoom. They don't know how to use it. But we did see it building. So now we have, for this year, while the restrictions are in place, now we've settled on we're only doing 4 books this year.
Okay, great idea. Yeah, fantastic. And do people get a chance themselves to sort of suggest a book? Is that how you, or do you suggest all of the books?
Well, for the moment I am, because again, through organization, because we're only doing, and it's online, we have suggested the 4 books for this year. The members know when the book clubs are on, and we offer the book boxes, and it comes with your book and it comes with a few goodies in it and a bottle of wine for the evening.
Yes.
But you can also just go and buy your book yourself. There's no, you know what I mean? You can just take it
fantastic. No, I mean, I really think I think you're onto something. I really genuinely do. I think it's fantastic. I'm going to ask you some of the usual questions I would ask the guests.
Sure.
We'll move and we'll come back to just us again. So what's the most difficult decision that you've had to make, Áine?
Easy by far is taking the decision to move from our home where we were in Ballivor back to Dublin, and that was in and around the same time as I started Just Us. So that was in 2018.
And do you want me to ask, where is Ballivor? I just forget.
Ballivor is in Meath. It's probably in between Trim and Athboy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was a difficult decision.
It was a difficult decision. We moved there 11 years previously, so my children grew up there.
Yes.
And that was our family home. That was where we were. We decided to move there because the idyllic lifestyle of the kids walking to school in a smaller town outside of the city. And that was what we wanted to do to rear our children. And it was great. They had an idyllic childhood, but they grow older. And the systems aren't in place there to commute.
I know. So you're back now.
Burnouts happened. Burnouts.
Yeah, no, I understand. You're back in Dublin. Yeah. Okay. What about who would you most like to meet and get advice from?
Okay. So it might sound a bit strange, but I obviously, I lost my dad when I was younger, but if I was to ever meet someone again, I would like to meet him. But I believe he watches everything that's going on around. So I would just like to meet him to clarify in my head stuff that's, if he's seeing everything, then I would like to meet him and ask him a few things that I try and sort out in my own head. It would be easier to ask him, what's going on there?
Oh, well, okay. I hear you. Have you ever actually even considered going to a medium to have that conversation?
I went to a medium.
Not quite the same. I know it's not quite the same, but I mean, have you ever considered doing that?
I went to a medium a long time ago, And I just made a decision to myself there and then that I was happy when I came out of the medium reading. I was happier, but I just I felt to myself that I don't need to be looking for answers all the time. I know he's there.
Yes.
You know he's there. So I don't need for someone to tell me all the time that he is, I feel it and I know it.
And you get the signs.
And I get all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
It's a wonderful feeling when you have that,
Sure.
connection. Do you feel that you have, or at least when do you feel that you have a connection to God, your soul, a higher purpose or higher self? Do you have that feeling very often?
I have it through just us.
Yes.
I do
And
have it through just us.
do you feel you've been guided to do this?
I do. I do feel like there's a hand in it anyway. And the amount of times that I've contemplated giving it up, I never have. I've always powered through,
Yes.
and we've got to where we are now. But no,
Yeah.
I definitely think I'm guided there. Yeah.
Beautiful. And, who would be the most influential person or people in your life?
Oh, I've loads of influential people. Yeah, in business, like I've only had this conversation for the last couple of weeks. There will be businessmen, companies, businesswomen who I would always follow. I'd look up to them, and that's in the industry I work in. And I suppose, yeah, with family, like everybody, I'd have family members that would be hugely influential to me. Yeah.
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 And your daughters, no doubt, I'm sure.
My daughters as well. Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
And so fantastic. I'm sure they're very proud of you, given what you're doing. So what advice would you give to your younger self, Áine?
Well, it would definitely be to be braver, wouldn't it? To be, to listen to yourself more. But it's hard to put a wise head on young shoulders. I think you have to learn everything you learn and your experiences to get to a place. But I try and tell my daughters, I'd give them advice, obviously, as their mother. I try and do it in a friendly way too. But sometimes I'm really careful of overloading them with advice, because I just think it's so important to learn through your mistakes, because that's what makes us who we are.
The tendency could be to always have the safety net there for them.
Yes.
And the soft landing. But you're so right. I mean, I totally agree with you. And it takes even practice as a parent, doesn't it? It takes practice as a mother, just because you want to kind of move in, and sometimes it's easier and quicker and faster, but it's not really. I keep saying to myself, no, they're not going to learn from this. They need to be self-sufficient and independent.
Yes.
But, yeah. So no, I completely am on board with you there. I have to say, braver. And I guess, I see it. I got up a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I was up about 5 o'clock in the morning, as I often get up that hour of the morning, and there was 2 pans in the kitchen, and there was a bit of egg left in a glass Pyrex jug, and it was my 15-year-old. At least he's using YouTube, I said, for something other than whatever else he's looking at on YouTube. So he was learning how to make an omelette at probably 1 o'clock in the morning. But I just had to laugh, I mean, I was just so thrilled, because I'm encouraging him the whole time. He is 15, and he's a bit on the, I suppose, typical lad, a bit, Mom, I'm hungry,
Yeah.
Of course, I straight away get stuck in. Yeah. But I have to admit that, I'm really encouraging him now. He's going into transition year, and I think this is a great year now. He's got more sense, and, but actually he is doing it, and he's making his pasta, and he's just involved. And it's allowing, and it's okay. I say it's okay. Don't worry about it. If you make a mistake, you can learn, and he's cleaning up after himself. So it's been wonderful, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
To watch this phase, and I guess too, that particular question, what would you tell your younger self? I mean, I often ask myself that question from time to time, but I'm also very mindful, even with my own son, that I don't bombard him with the things that I kind of wish I knew when I was that age.
Yeah.
Because like you say, it's important that we allow them to find it out themselves.
Yeah.
I often think that when the parent is telling you in a kind of heavy duty way, you're going to actually repel it.
Absolutely.
You're not going to listen. So I'm glad that I can be honest with myself, to remember that I didn't always listen either, and I was going to do it my own way. So, that's just how we have to really, really hold back. It's a big, you know, it depends on what phase you're at in parenting. You've got your three different age groups there with your daughters, but you know, it is, you know, that would be something that you'd probably chat on one of the walks about with other mothers. You know, they're going through the same kind of thing, and you wouldn't feel that you're losing the plot when you're at home on your own, and you know, just trying to figure it out, because there's no rule book, is there, when it comes to parenting?
Not at all. And I three daughters raised the exact same way, and the three of them are so different.
Yes. Yeah.
It's that like amazes me. I'm still learning as a parent. Like the mistakes I made, obviously the mistakes I made with my eldest girl, I'm a bit more dead wide now with the second girl coming up. So, you know, but I'm learning. And then especially with the younger one, then, you know, but they slag me because they say, you know, do you know the way kids go on, like they all think I favor the other one more. You know, I get this all the time.
And at the end of the day, they know that you love them just equally, but it's just,
but it's like
what we do. I mean, I'm the eldest.
Manipulation. It's manipulation with the kids. Do you know what I mean? But you learn it, and then I'm the same with them. So I find that as a parent, I can be a bit manipulating with them, because I'll throw a solution out there, and I don't know whether you're going to take it or not. But this is what I would do, and then it's kind of, so you know, it's all a big kind of learning curve for all of us.
It absolutely certainly is, and all the more why we need to switch off and have these social networks, right? Just to actually feel a little bit sane for a while and realize that, you know, we're doing our best. You know, that is it. We're doing our best. Exactly. So listen, what book are you reading yourself at the minute?
So I'm reading Good Eggs at the moment from Rebecca Hardiman, but that's the choice of the book club in July. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. Now I would read like a book every week, like I'll always have, where in the evenings, but for some weeks, like myself, I get too busy.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
And listen, is that a non-fiction or is it fiction?
Yeah, it's a novel. It's funny. It's a funny kind of a book.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. I must actually look it up. So what would your favorite quote be and why?
Well, easy ones. I'm simple is the best, but one of my favorite quotes, if you use it all the time, is yes, you can. You know, just yes, you can.
Yeah.
And we love that one. And then another one I have, and I'm using it more and more lately, like is be kind always, you know, because it relates to every aspect of your whole life.
Yeah.
Parenting, in your job, with other people, to be kind always, and you won't go wrong.
Oh, completely. And it's a great thing to be teaching your children. And that's the one thing I say to my own son too, is just be kind, you know, be part of a solution, you know, be part of the solution. And but kindness, certainly, I mean, there's a big campaign, isn't there? Especially last year, was it, when and unfortunately her name escapes me now, the presenter in the UK that unfortunately took her own life, and then that whole Be Kind kicked off again. But I mean, you're absolutely right. It's so important to be mindful of that, and also to understand that when people are not being kind, that there is definitely something going on, and they need maybe a little bit more kindness shown to them, you know. But they will soften with the right approach, I believe. But certainly, be kind is a beautiful quote. It says it all. It covers a multitude of things. So in terms of Just Us, because one thing we didn't say is, in your daytime job, you're in the construction world and you're retail manager for a company here in Ireland. But which you've already said to me previously, that it's quite the masculine side of life for you. And then you have this beautiful sort of more feminine side in the Just Us and the social network that it is. But what do you see as a future and yourself in this business going forward? Where do you see it going?
So for Just Us, you know, the end game would be that Just Us would be a franchise around the world, that any woman can take the network and she can run a network in her area, and she can generate friendships for people and help in that way. So that would be it. And the same with the products, that we can get the products ready for retail environment. And we're working on packaging at the moment to try and get into gift stores and try to get the brand out there. So that's tough, because like the country is really only reopening now. So that's our next step.
But it's also, I think it's also a good time.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that is a question of perspective, isn't it? So if you see this as being the perfect time for this, it will be.
Absolutely.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can. Like, it's a yes,
Yeah.
you can. Absolutely, you can do this, and you
Yeah.
can really get this message out there. Um,
Yeah.
is there an equivalent for the men?
Well, I get asked this all the time. I genuinely do. And I would really, and I mean this, it just us came from, I just wanted a place for women to connect with each other. But it was never my intention to exclude men.
Yeah,
Like that didn't even come into the picture.
sure.
But I do see a kind of a network for men, but I don't know how I would be able to contribute, because don't forget that I am just us. I'm there. I'm the one on the walks. I'm the one starting the
Yeah,
conversation. I'm the one mingling. I just don't know. I don't know anything about sport. I
yeah.
don't know anything about. I don't know what I would talk.
Yeah, but maybe somebody in your network, maybe the person, the
Yeah,
male that's living in the house with you, might
yeah.
actually just take it on. Has he ever thought about doing something similar for the guys?
No, he's just too busy and he's not a talker, which
Sure.
is why I had to go out and find friends in the
Oh,
first
wow.
place.
Brilliant. I love it. Okay. Do you know what? That's a good thing just to finish on. So, well, actually, let me just ask you one more thing,
Yeah.
Áine. Do you believe this is a calling for you? Like, do you believe that something is pulling you towards this? What's the bigger purpose of it?
I I just don't think in this day and age that anybody should be lonely. I really, really believe that there's no need for it. There's so many people out there who we can connect with,
Yeah.
and it
And
is
yes,
a bit of a
and
challenge.
even speaking to my own mother who's visiting me at the moment, well, we grew up in Dublin and Phibsborough. Like, we grew up in a wonderful community, and it was so incredibly
Hmm.
inclusive. Like,
Yeah,
everybody was just in each other's houses. It was an amazing childhood when I look back
yeah,
on reflection. Everybody came in. It was friendly. It was just really nice.
yeah,
And where my mother's living now, and she's still in Dublin, and my father, they really don't know their neighbors,
yeah,
and it's incredibly sad. And
yeah,
that's worldwide. I think that's in many places, including even in the countryside. I mean, I'm living in a lovely village in the west of Ireland, in
mm,
Galway. Now, I do know my neighbors, but
yeah,
we're not in each other's houses. We're
mm,
not, there's not as much interaction perhaps as there would
mm,
have been, as I would have witnessed as a child.
yeah.
And it is a bit sad. But we're lucky here, we have the woods beside us. So I generally have my chats with the neighbors when I bump into them when they're on their walks.
Well,
But I'm
it's a
essentially on the
community
walk on my
spirit.
own with the dog. I'm with myself,
No,
I'm with the dog. But it's great to have a chat, or maybe to join. We would extend our walk when we'd meet perhaps one or two friends, and we'd end up walk. But it can be very, very lonely, Áine. And I think you're really, truly onto something fantastic.
yeah, I think you're just reminding me there of one thing that I did love about moving away from Dublin. And exactly, look, I come from a family, there's seven of us. So
Mhm.
it's not, I can't really explain to you that it's not that you're not surrounded by people. That's not what I feel loneliness is. But
Okay.
when I moved away from Dublin and went down the country, do you know what I used to love? I used to love, even if you drove by somebody in a car on the road on your way home, you'd always get
Right.
someone
I
waving.
know.
And
Yes.
when I moved down Forsyth, I'd be like, is he waving at me? And now that I'm back in Dublin,
Yes.
that's exactly the same for my mother as well. Like, that's gone, because and I don't think people mean it. Don't get me wrong. I don't think people mean it. But I think if you took conscious effort
Mhm.
to, maybe when you're walking down the road, say hi, you'd be
You know, and
surprised that that person will say
I do
hi.
say hi. I do say hi. And
Yeah,
the funny thing, when I lived in London and I remember, like, my English friends, I would actually be saying hi in the streets of London, and they would say, "Are you,
are
what's
you mad?
wrong with you? Are you mad?"
Yeah,
And eventually, I will tell you, I did stop doing it.
right,
I actually did stop doing it,
right.
because I would have gone into the local shop for maybe
Yeah,
milk or something, and I'd say hello and talk about the
yeah,
weather, as you do, but
yeah,
they'd be looking at you because nobody engaged in conversation. And it is incredibly sad. We've just lost that ability to a large degree, but we can bring it back. And I think
yeah,
too that perhaps people have taken this whole idea of not wanting to impose on another person,
yeah.
their privacy and all that kind of, maybe just way too beyond,
Too far,
too far,
too
too
far.
far. And I do know too, we're busier perhaps now than we were. Certainly when I was growing up, my mother didn't work. So she
Yeah,
was always at the house, and the women were
yes,
all at home. They didn't work either.
yes.
I thought it was different, but I think you're really onto something, Áine, and I really admire you for what you're doing. And I have no doubt that it's going to be a fantastic success, because I can see that you're bringing an awful lot of your skills that you've learned in the retail industry and your years of experience working in business to this. So I'm going to wish you every success.
Thank you so much.
And with Just Us, and where I see it evolving, I know you have a great head on your shoulders, and your heart is certainly in it. So thank you for doing this, and well done. Maybe I'll join you on one of those walks. I'm up in Dublin one of these days.
Absolutely. Love to see you.
Thank you, Áine. And so Áine's business is justus.ie. So we'll put the link with this recording, and please share it, and get in touch with Áine if you want to know more about it on her website and the wonderful products that she's creating. I want to thank you for listening in on this episode of On a Mission. And if you're a woman on a mission too, I'd love to hear from you and have you as a guest on this show. So thank you so much. And until the next time, take care and be kind. I'm going to borrow that. I'm going to use it on this. So thank you so much, Áine. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this show so that you will be notified when the next episode is released. And remember, keep believing you're amazing and you have so much to give. Now is your time.